taking the man, the myth, the legend, the most electrifying villain in all of YouTube entertainment today, General Zod. And today, I'm back down that rabbit hole, folks. I'm back down that rabbit hole of K-dramas, Korean dramas, whatever you want to call it. So earlier this uh, last month or so, I did a review on the K-drama The Glory, which touched on bullying and things like that. But then I found previews and I ran across a couple of clips of this newer one called Hierarchy, which is a more teenage K-drama focused show. And what did I think of it? Well, I think if you took the premise of Pretty Little Liars and Gossip Girl and you smashed them together, you would get this show with a little bit of that grit from Glory. But this feels more like a teenage version of that show, The Glory. Hey, how you doing, Cement Shoes? Good to see you here. So let me break down my goods, my bads, and things like that and give you an overall premise of the show that I'm talking about. Hierarchy is the Korean drama that, hey, Carmen, what's up, is based on a mystery of sorts. So I got a preference why I like this show with a little bit of history. I come from the era of Gossip Girl and Pretty Little Liars and stuff like that. And I know you're thinking, but Zod, how did you come across watching these kinds of shows? Like, you liked that trash. And let me just preference this. There's always something fascinating about rich people drama. And I liked the first couple of seasons of Pretty Little Liars, and I watched Gossip Girl all the way to the end. Anything that has to do with New York, I am in. Gossip Girl was one of my favorite shows. I do not like the ending of that show. As a matter of fact, if you talk to anyone who watched the show, the end of the show is the least favorite part. And this show works a lot like that. So Hierarchy is about a school called Joseon High. And Joseon High has a bunch of rich socialites and these students who are allowed to attend there who are called scholarship students. Now, the thing that's fascinating and what really makes these shows work, and I've seen some reviews and heard some negative reviews on this, which I disagree with, and I'll get into that in a second. But hey, Carmen, good to see you. The crux of the show is there is a murder in the very beginning of the show. And after this murder, there's a new student who comes into this world of Joseon High, where he enters as a mysterious exchange student. And the bigger mystery of this show is, who is he? How is he connected to the person who was murdered? And why was the person murdered? And I think in a show like this, you have to have something that the audience will click to the next episode to watch because they're so intrigued. And even when you find out the mystery, if you want a long-running show, you have to have another hook. And I think this show has several hooks. Now, I've heard people say the characters are hollow, and I'll push back on it. Most of them are not. Some of them are. You have 7 episodes that are an hour apiece, and you only have so much room to flesh it out. But I think the main characters we followed, especially the 2 leads, are very good. And they are the ones you need to follow for this mystery in order to care about the big reveal at the end. The other thing that Korean dramas I notice do much better is they end their stories each season. Each season is broken up different than America. In America, we won't tell the whole mystery in the first season because then there's no reason for people to come back. But Korean dramas don't operate that way. They finish the story up while leaving a little bit of breadcrumbs for whatever they want to tell next, which I think is how you should do when you write television. They used to do that, but that art has been lost. So the thing that I find most fascinating about this is the whole premise of not just exploring that these are mean rich kids, but these kids have layers. And the perspective that we take is in the friend group. And we get to see how they interact with each other. And unlike the show The Glory, where they were just horrid, awful people that essentially destroyed themselves, this show, they're high school kids, and the dynamic is still very much a high school frame rate. So this one likes this one. This one is friends from this one when they were kids. And there's a lot of different bonds and relationships that are formed there. While this situation that had honestly nothing to do with them has sort of exposed all of the nasty things that these rich kids have done to the poor kids. And I think, one, this tackles the message. And I'll be honest with you, I like the ending to this show a lot more than The Glory, because The Glory had a lot of things that they had to do to make the ending of her revenge work. Where the revenge that this kid got was very logical and could actually happen in the real world, which bumps this up a point for me. So we have Kang-hee, who is the new transfer student. We have jae-won, who is this girl who left for America and came back for the starting school year. She is the girlfriend or ex of Kim Mirai. And you have all of these different things going on. Now, there's a couple of mysteries here. There's why she left and came back. There is why she dumped Kim Hing. And then there is who Kang-hee is targeting and what his purpose is. And I gotta say, the lead guy in here, Kang-hee, the one we're supposed to be rooting for, is so good. He smiles, he laughs, he's a very unassuming character until he switches and you see a cold, calculated side to him and his plot and what he's there to do. And when it's revealed his connection to the person who died in the beginning of the show, it's a great reveal that I'm not going to spoil here. It's a non-spoiler reveal. But I found it very interesting. It was a trope I've seen done 1,000 times in these kind of shows. But I don't have a problem with tropes. I have a problem with how you execute a particular trope. Everything has tropes. Everything has reused stuff. But it's how you write it and how you set the events up for it to lead into the big reveals that makes a show good or bad. And for me, I gotta be honest, there were some reveals in this show I did not see coming whatsoever. Another positive is the school itself. Korea has got us beat, man. Like, I was getting mad in America watching this show because the school is absolutely gorgeous. The settings are gorgeous, but even the poorish neighborhoods and their systems and stuff like that are super nice looking. So I liked seeing these different things, but also the very interesting puzzle piece in this and things that get fleshed out a little later is the parents. And you can see the rich and powerful parents and how they've influenced the behavior of their children. And a lot of this is the parents giving the children some kind of entitlement, and also the kids being responsible for their own actions and bullying these other poor kids that are in this school. So it's all very fascinating dynamics. So this has a beautiful soundscape, has a lot of cool songs that kind of match the vibe of the particular thing that's going on. I like the theme song. The opening's pretty snazzy. It's very well shot. Now, for my negatives, is that there is a relationship that happens in this show between Jae-hee and Kang-hee, and it happens pretty early. That's the dude who transferred to the school. And unlike most shows, there's supposed to be this love triangle thing going. And I'll be quite honest, I did not buy the relationship whatsoever. And to create a certain sense of suspense and drama in a show like this, I think you have to have a good chemistry. And I didn't buy them as lovers as much as really good friends that become adversaries in the midpoint of the show. So it was very tough for me to buy the underlying tension between uh, Ryan and King Ho when those two had to face off as he gets closer to the mystery of how this student died. The other thing I wanted to applaud is the end of the show. There is some shocking reveals, and I 100% do not agree with reviewers who saw it said that it was like, well, whatever. Yes, these have been done before, but I think leading up to it and how they build the suspense and how each episode has a kind of stinger that leads you into the next episode, and you, things you think that are the truth aren't the truth, and things that you think flip. Um, I thought that was very well done. I especially liked Jae-hee in this. There's two favorite characters I have is Jae-hee and her best friend. Hold on, I gotta look up the name of it. And forgive me if I mispronounce names because it's Korean, so I apologize. But he Rai, uh, are best friends, and they start to have a war in the beginning of this. And they've been friends since they were 6 years old, and some things happen. Guys, obviously, she wants to date the dude that J likes, and there becomes a little rivalry there. And once in a while, I like the high school drama, man. Takes me back to the good old days. Who doesn't like a little bit of a cat fights and love triangles and bitter rivalries? Hello, Zod, Jay Lee, and so yeah, uh, so so Jay and Hyrie have a rivalry. They're after this one particular guy, and they do some underhanded things to each other. And so this is a teen drama, yes, but I think it's also adult in a way because there is a murder mystery tied up into this. Also, later there is corruption and there's scandal and there's school covering stuff up that students are doing. And this to me felt like real. Like there's a lot of this stuff that happens in the real world, rich elite schools covering up shit that students do. This is nothing we haven't heard. And I'm glad to see a lot of these Korean dramas focusing on this particular angle because it's a true life thing. There's a lot of stories about it. I mean, people being bullied and things like that. And they're nowhere poor, but in that world, you are poor. And the resolution and how things wrap up in the show, I like because they actually tell you everything and things that you want to happen. You are not held off waiting a season. Now, there is a huge cliffhanger at the end of this, like a massive cliffhanger that I didn't know I wanted to know until they dropped the final shot. I mean, right up to the final frame, there's a revelation that happens where you go, wow, having to do with Jae and her personal background. And just when you think there's nothing more to explore with that character, you find out things and what happened when she went to America. And I gotta say, I want to see season 2. This was an overall good, solid show. It's 7 episodes. They are an hour apiece. And I think the middle portion does lag a little bit. And for my negatives, I will say some of the love stuff I didn't buy. There was some of the teenage tropes that are in here that kind of hinder what this show's potential could be. But I do see this show being very much able to work past those issues because they've now set up compelling arcs for these characters. And the stuff with the parents was very fascinating. There's a dad, Jae's father, who's a real scumbag. There is this other parent of her best friend, Hirai, who her dad basically uses her social status to save his company. And it really kind of doesn't make the villains so villainous. It sheds a light that these are people, these are kids that essentially are being either bred or they're being manipulated for their parents to gain position of power and to move them like they do their corporations and move their kids like chess pieces. And it's fucking fascinating. I'm not going to lie. Like, it's very intriguing when you don't come from that world to see this kind of perspective and to see how even the children are used and manipulated and played on this chessboard, with this one dude marrying his daughter off to the company's son to do a merger. Like, it's stuff like that. And you go, wow. Because within the teen drama bullshit, you have this like actual real life kind of stuff that's happening with these kids being shifted around. And then you wonder why they're getting drunk and beating up other kids. Like, no kidding, man. Like, look, I'm not saying, rich people got it tough. But I'm saying when it comes to kids and being a father, I understand how somebody can appreciate the aspects that the show touches on and the feelings of people manipulating and using their children in order to gain positions of power. It's very compelling stuff. At General Zod's Phantom Zone, there's any relationships between students and adults. That's something they always do. Yes. Yeah. So Janie Davis, you hit the nail on the head. And I want to say, unlike America, Korea does this bit very well. There is a student and a teacher that are dating, of course, because it's an elite school, and the students can basically get away with anything. And I will say, it's actually one of the most toxic, and it's actually that relationship is the centerpiece for this whole show. I gotta say, I've seen this in Pretty Little Liars, Gossip Girl, and stuff like that. I'd say this was the best use of that subplot that I've seen in a long time, because that relationship is what gets the ball rolling on this whole entire show. And I think the resolution made me the most satisfied, because nothing that they do is glorified by the end of this show. Everybody, I will say, there are repercussions, and the whole premise of the show is about repercussions for these people's actions, and not just the kids, but the parents as well. The hatred of rich people thing doesn't apply to kids. Yeah, I do agree. I think that if the kids were raised better, you can break them out of the cycle. But the nasty thing about these people being rich and everything else is that they don't break the cycle. They breed and they groom their kids into this sort of lifestyle where they can buy anything, they can have anything, they can treat anybody any way they see fit, and mom and dad will cover it up. But in this show, they don't really get into the nepotism of it. It's, you see a lot of characters, and this is what I mean where I say I really like the characters in the show, because you see from the kids' perspective the pressure, the stakes, the way that they have to present themselves. Like I said, my two favorite characters is Jane-hee, who has a bulk of the story, and her story is heartbreaking, and Hira, who's the best friend, who's not considered as wealthy as the others. And then, of course, the main character, Kim-hee, who is the one who transfers to this school. And you get a lot of depths and layers with these four characters, and you get to see that it's not just, oh, they're in high school and they're rich and oh my God, stuff is happening. You get to see their feelings on what their parents are doing, how they're being pressured, how they have to take over this company and this facade that they have to present to everybody else, how they can't do anything because these scandals will get out and it'll destroy their father or it'll hurt their mother or it'll damage the company. it's fascinating, and I'll admit I have guilty pleasure shows, and this falls very much into a guilty pleasure type of show. This, if you like shows like what I described, and the best ones that come to mind are like, Pretty Little Liar, Gossip Girl, Damages, things like that. If you like those kind of dramas where there's a scandal and stuff is happening, and you're very much into wanting to know what the mystery is, this is a great show to watch. And it's 7 episodes. At an hour piece, it's like 7 hours. It's basically 2 movies. So if you have a Netflix account, I strongly suggest watching Hierarchy. I'm going to give this show an 8 out of 10. I really love this show. I really enjoyed it. I really hope they do a season 2, because that cliffhanger at the ending was crazy. I would love to break down each episode and talk about the significance and stuff. And I just think it was a really great mystery, but that even when that the mystery was not only solved, but there were consequences in this show. And that's the thing that I liked over Glory. I felt like in Glory, there wasn't enough consequences to this lady seeking revenge. Like, I wanted her to have revenge, but realistically, in her situation, it was totally unrealistic how it ended. In this, it has a very realistic ending. What happens and the way that they leave it off is exactly what would happen should somebody blow up what was going on. And I found that super cool, especially particular characters who any other show would give them a pass for a second season. But everything is resolved by the end of this show with a huge cliffhanger should they have the ratings to do the next season. And I hope they do, because I thoroughly enjoyed this. I would be totally down for a season 2. So I'm not going to give it a 10 because I don't think it's like peak television, but I think it's a solid 8, and I think it's even more enjoyable than certain movies I've watched, to be quite honest. I was enthralled. I started this last night, and I just finished the final 2 episodes, and I was in it from beginning to end. It was like one of those shows where I clicked constantly next on the remote, because I had to know, like, oh my God, who's going to get with who? Why is this one playing this one? What's everybody's end game? And I think they do. Everybody's choices collide. All things are revealed. All truths come forward. People suffer the consequences of their actions. And now it's like, okay, where do we go from here? What's the next steps? Is this school the same? Does anything change? There is consequences. People do pay for things, but it also has that feeling that at the end of the day, with these rich people, nothing ever really changes. It goes back to status quo. It goes back to being the same type of place it was before. And that is the real world, right? Sometimes institutions don't change. The people change, the staff changes, but what that institution is fundamentally stays the same because of the people who own it. And I think that's the biggest takeaway I got from the end of this, was that there's a character in this who says, even if you expose everything, right, what makes you think that you'll change the school itself? Because it's not just the people running it, but everything's become institutionalized and accepted. And until you break people's willingness to accept these bad behaviors, then real change can't happen. And I think that is so interesting for a teen drama to tackle. Institutions and classisms and bullying and what it means to be in a social statuses, and how you can kind of look at the other side of the fence and go, maybe it isn't greener over there. Maybe the grass is a little gray. So I like this show. Check it out. It's a good watch. Just to let you guys know, I'm not going to have late night talks this week, and we will not be doing a tier list on Wednesday due to I have a good friend of mine who came up to visit me, and my other colleagues have other things going on. So this week we won't have a tier list. We will be returning next Wednesday with a all new tier list, which will be a surprise. I will announce it on the day, but it's going to be super fun. We're also going to do another battle of the tier list, and we will be going and having late night talks. Back on Friday, I have a lot of issues and things to tackle as far as the news goes. A lot of stories that I like to continue covering. I might be covering some stuff on Dr. Disrespect that I started because there's been some new developments that I might tackle. And of course, this week I will be releasing reviews, studies, so you guys have some videos from me. Oh, thank you. I appreciate you, Jandy Davis, and I appreciate all of you guys coming by and checking out my review. If you like the video, hit the like button and let me know. Do you like dramas? Do you like teen dramas? Have you seen Gossip Girls, Pretty Little Liars, Step Brothers, Perfect Circle, all of those dramas that came out simultaneously? Or is this not your thing? Have I convinced you to watch this? Or have you watched it and you're like, nah, I think this is crap? I've seen a lot of mixed reviews on this show, but me personally, I fall in the camp that it's a 7 or 8. I've seen a lot of 7/8s floating around. I definitely think this is one of the well-made teen dramas out there, and I'll be checking out the next season. I got my Barry retrospective coming out, and I will be starting a new retrospective. I just got a brand new box set for one of my favorite shows. I will talk about the gem, the lost show that no one talks about here on the platform. One of my favorite shows created by Chris Carter, the creator of The X-Files, called Millennium. I will be doing a full Millennium retrospective breakdown on seasons 1, 2, and 3 with the episode that was supposed to wrap it up on season 7 of The X-Files called Millennium, which has Lance Henriksen, who plays Detective Frank Black. And I will tell you how this show was the first show to use real police procedural in it. Before this show, honestly, you did not have CIS or the rest of them doing this. This was the pioneer of real life forensics and details on cases in a show. And I'll tell you why it's my favorite show of all time. So check that out. And thank you, everybody, for watching. As always, please hit that like, share, subscribe. And remember, there is only one. No, it's definitely not the X-Files. I've heard that. It is the furthest thing from the X-Files. Don't worry, I'll explain why. But anyways, as always, remember, there's only one rule here in the Fandom Zone. Kneel before General Zod.